It had been years, nah, decades since I last took that old country road. I told myself I'd never come back. But some places don't let you forget that easy. The second my tires hit that familiar curve through the hills, it was like time hadn't moved at all. The tall oaks still leaned close, whispering over the road. Even the fence posts seemed to nod as I passed, and the wildflowers swayed like they still remembered my name. The light that afternoon had that golden, forgiving glow, the kind that turns even dust into something worth keeping. I rolled the window down, and the air hit me with that old country scent, warm dirt, cut grass, a hint of clover. It was the smell of home, soft, steady, and patient. And then I saw it, the gate, right there at the edge of the field. For a second, I wasn't sure it'd still be there. Some things you don't dare look for, in case they're gone. But there it was, leaning a little more than I remembered, paint worn to a gentle gray, one hinge groaning when the breeze pushed it. Still open, always open. I just sat there, engine humming, staring at it like it might speak first. That gate had been part of my life for as long as I could remember. When I was a kid, I used to swing on it, legs kicking, pretending I was riding a wild horse across the plains. It was the first thing you saw when you came home, and somehow, it always looked like it was waiting for you. I pulled off the road and stepped out, gravel crunching under my boots. The wind carried the hum of summer, the rustle of corn, the call of a mourning dove somewhere near the fence line. Out here, time didn't rush. It wandered. When I reached out and touched the gate, the wood felt warm and rough beneath my hand. Some parts worn smooth, others splintered with age. My granddad built it himself, long before I was born. He always said a gate ought never be closed unless it had to be, that folks should feel welcome to come through if they needed to. He always said that, but when he passed, it felt like the gate had closed all the same. I guess some promises are too heavy for wooden hinges to hold. I gave it a push, and it swung open with that same old creak. That sound, it was like a memory you could hear. For a heartbeat, I could see him again, broad shoulders, hat tipped low, wiping the sweat from his brow after a long day in the sun. And Grandma, standing on the porch, waving him in for supper while the screen door slapped shut behind her. I stood there longer than I meant to, caught between then and now. The air had that soft hum of evening, and the light stretched long across the field, painting everything gold. The house up the hill looked smaller now, but it still had that proud tilt to it. The willow by the creek bent just the same, its branches brushing the water like an old prayer. Even the air seemed to hold its breath, like it knew someone had come home. As I walked up the path, I thought about all the times I'd run this same stretch barefoot, a jar of fireflies in one hand and wildflowers for Grandma's table in the other. I could almost hear her laugh again, warm, certain, the kind that made you believe the world was good. Coming back to where you began doesn't just show you what's changed. It shows you what lasted. Halfway up the hill, I turned back. The light caught the gate just right, and for a second, it looked brand new, like the day my granddad first built it. The same gate that never once had a lock. I smiled then, one of those quiet smiles that start somewhere deep inside. That old gate wasn't just wood and hinges, it was home. A promise that said, come when you can, leave when you must, but know you can always come back. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of lilacs from the far side of the yard, the same smell that used to drift through my window on warm nights long ago. I stood there a while, letting past and present settle together in that soft space between day and dusk. The crickets started up their slow evening song, and before I even realized it, the words slipped out, gentle and certain. I'm home. And for the first time in years, the world went quiet, and so did I. It had been years, decades, since I last took that old country road. I told myself I'd never come back. But some places don't let you forget that easy. The second my tires hit that familiar curve through the hills, it was like time hadn't moved at all. The tall oaks still leaned close, whispering over the road. Even the fence posts nodded as I passed, and the wildflowers swayed like they still remembered my name. The light that afternoon had that golden, forgiving glow, the kind that turns even dust into something worth keeping. I rolled the window down, and the air hit me with that old country scent, warm dirt, cut grass, and a hint of clover. It was the smell of home, soft, steady, and patient. And then I saw it, the gate, right there at the edge of the field. For a second, I wasn't sure it'd still be there. Some things you don't dare look for, in case they're gone. But there it was, leaning a little more than I remembered, paint worn to a gentle gray, one hinge groaning when the breeze pushed it. Still open, always open. I just sat there, engine humming, staring at it like it might speak first. That gate had been part of my life for as long as I could remember. When I was a kid, I used to swing on it, legs kicking, pretending I was riding a wild horse across the plains. It was the first thing you saw when you came home, and somehow, it always looked like it was waiting for you. I pulled off the road and stepped out, gravel crunching under my boots. The wind carried the hum of summer, the rustle of corn, the call of a mourning dove somewhere near the fence line. Out here, time didn't rush. It wandered. When I reached out and touched the gate, the wood felt warm and rough beneath my hand. Some parts worn smooth, others splintered with age. My granddad built it himself, long before I was born. He always said a gate ought never be closed unless it had to be. But sometimes, I wonder if I was the one who closed it. He always said that. But when he passed, it felt like the gate had closed all the same. I guess some promises are too heavy for wood and hinges to hold. I gave it a push, and it swung open with that same old creak. That sound, it was like a memory you could hear. For a heartbeat, I could see him again, broad shoulders, hat tipped low, wiping the sweat from his brow after a long day in the sun. And Grandma, standing on the porch, waving him in for supper while the screen door slapped shut behind her. I stood there longer than I meant to, caught between then and now. The air had that soft hum of evening, and the light stretched long across the field, painting everything gold. The house up the hill looked smaller now, but it still had that proud tilt to it. The willow by the creek bent just the same, its branches brushing the water like an old prayer. Even the air seemed to hold its breath, like it knew someone had come home. As I walked up the path, I thought about all the times I'd run this same stretch barefoot, a jar of fireflies in one hand and wildflowers for Grandma's table in the other. I could almost hear her laugh again, warm, certain, the kind that made you believe the world was good. Coming back to where you began doesn't just show you what's changed. It shows you what lasted. Halfway up the hill, I turned back. The light caught the gate just right, and for a second, it looked brand new, like the day my granddad first built it. The same gate that never once had a lock. I smiled then, one of those quiet smiles that starts somewhere deep inside. That old gate wasn't just wooden hinges, it was home. A promise that said, come when you can, leave when you must, but know you can always come back. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of lilacs from the far side of the yard, the same smell that used to drift through my window on warm nights long ago. I stood there a while, letting past and present settle together in that soft space between day and dusk. Funny how quiet can feel like forgiveness. The crickets started up their slow evening song, and before I even realized it, the words slipped out, gentle and certain. I'm home. And for the first time in years, the world went quiet, and so did I. I used to think that summer would last forever, but I didn't realize it actually did, just not in the way I expected. There are some summers that never really end. They just drift a little quieter, tucked away inside you, waiting for the right breeze or the right song to wake them up again. For me, it was the summer of blue skies, the one that seemed to stretch on without edges. Days rolled by slow and golden, the air full of promise and honeysuckle. The world felt bigger than my small hands could ever hold. I'd wake each morning to the sound of morning doves and the gentle creak of the porch swing outside my window. Grandma would already be in the kitchen, humming along with the radio, the smell of biscuits and bacon curling through the screen door. Grandpa's whistle would carry across the yard, steady, unhurried, the kind of sound that told you the day had already begun, and everything was right with the world. I'd take off barefoot down the steps, still half dreaming, grass cool and damp beneath my feet. My fishing pole, just a cane stick with twine tied at the end, leaned against the porch rail, waiting for me like an old friend. That little creek behind the field was my whole universe. It wasn't deep, and the fish weren't big, but to me, it was an ocean. I'd wade in up to my knees, the water clear enough to see minnows flash like silver threads beneath the surface. Sometimes I'd catch one, but mostly I just watched, happy to be a part of whatever quiet magic lived there. Funny thing about that creek, I didn't know how much I'd miss it. Grandpa would come down sometimes, settle beside me on the bank, his boots planted firm in the dirt. He didn't talk much when we fished. He'd just sit there, slow and still, like the world moved at the pace of the river. "Patience," he'd say now and then. "You can't rush what's meant to come." He was talking about the fish, sure, but maybe not only that. By noon, the sun would hang high and bright, and the heat shimmered off the fields like a living thing. I'd head back to the porch, pockets full of smooth stones, and find Grandma waiting with a tall glass of sweet tea. "I made extra ice," she'd say, smiling that slow, knowing smile. I'd sit beside her on the swing, the boards creaking in rhythm with the breeze. She'd tell me little things, how the tomatoes were coming in, or that the neighbor's dog had pups again. Simple talk, but there was comfort in it, the kind that settles deep in your bones. I didn't realize it then, but Grandma was teaching me more than how to make biscuits. She was showing me how to live slow enough to notice things. Evenings came easy back then. Grandpa would light his pipe, the smell of cherry tobacco hanging soft in the air. Grandma would hum some old tune, and the sun would fall slow behind the hills, stretching light across the porch until everything turned to gold. Even now, I can see it all. The light, the laughter, the easy way time seemed to move slower back then. That was the last summer before everything changed. Grandpa got sick that fall, and the sound of his whistle faded from the mornings. But in that summer, he was still there, solid as the earth, steady as time. Some nights, after supper, he'd tell stories. Not the kind you'd find in books, just family tales. The year the creek flooded, the county fair where he won a ribbon for his peach pie, the first time he saw Grandma, dancing in red shoes that pinched her toes. And every story ended the same way, with her laughing and him pretending not to. As darkness settled, the fireflies would come out, tiny lanterns flickering through the yard. I'd chase them with a mason jar, barefoot and wild, while Grandma called from the porch, "Don't run too far, now." She'd always loosen the jar lid, just enough for the fireflies to breathe. That was her way. She never tried to hold on too tight. She just let things be. Sometimes I'd lie in bed, listening to the house breathe. The crickets outside, the hum of Grandma's voice through the thin wall, and the faint sound of Grandpa's cough downstairs. I didn't know it, but those sounds are becoming memories, the kind that stay long after the voices are gone. Years later, when the world moved faster and I thought I'd forgotten, something as simple as the smell of sweet tea or the sound of a dove would take me right back. The porch, the laughter, the sky, all of it still there, waiting. I think that's what Grandpa meant when he said patience, that life doesn't really move on. It just waits for you to remember. Some things are worth the wait, he'd said. And now, standing years and miles away from that summer, I believe him. Sometimes I still catch myself listening for that whistle, half expecting it to float in on the evening air. Those are the summers that never really end. They just wait for you to come home. Maybe patience isn't about waiting at all. Maybe it's about remembering. The best lessons I ever learned didn't come from school. They came standing beside a man who barely spoke at all. My grandfather could say more in a quiet morning than most folks could fit into a lifetime of talking. He wasn't much for teaching in the usual way. No lectures, no scolding, no this is how it's done. He just did things right, steady, patient, and somehow you learn by being near him. Every morning that summer, I'd find him already out by the fence line, the sun still low, fog clinging to the grass like it was shy to leave. He'd have his hammer in one hand, a coil of wire slung over his shoulder, and that slow, purposeful walk, boots making that dry crunch only August dust can make. The fence stretched along the edge of the field, wood gone gray and smooth from years of wind and weather. The wire sang when it tightened, a low, metallic hum that felt almost alive. Cicadas buzz in the trees like a summer heartbeat behind it all. I'd carry the bucket of nails, trying to match his stride but always falling a few steps short. He'd give me that half smile, the kind that said, "Keep up, kid, you'll get there." He used to say, "You can tell a man by the way he keeps his fence." At 8 years old, I didn't have a clue what that meant. But I nodded like I did, because when Grandpa talked, you listened. We'd work in near silence, the rhythm of it as steady as breathing, the swing of his hammer, the creak of the post-hole digger, the hum of summer all around us. Sometimes he'd pause, lean on the handle, and look out across the field like the land itself was talking back. That's when he'd drop one of those lines that stuck forever. "Don't fix something halfway," he'd say. "If it's worth doing, it's worth doing right." Or sometimes, "Don't close a gate unless you've got to. You never know who might need to come through." And then he'd go back to work, leaving me to turn those words over in my head while the wind carried the smell of sun-warmed hay and dust. Funny how the smallest chores teach you the biggest truths, isn't it? One morning, I got cocky. Thought I knew how to tighten the wire myself. I pulled too hard, too fast, and the staple slipped, snapping the line loose. The sharp end whipped across my hand, leaving a bright red mark that stung like fire. I bit back a curse, embarrassed. I expected him to scold me, maybe even laugh. But he didn't. He just walked over, calm as always, and crouched beside me. He looked at the torn glove, then at my face, and said softly, "Slow down, son. Patience don't mean standing still. It means moving steady." Then he took the wire, showed me the right tension, that fine line between too loose and too tight, and handed it back. "Try again," he said. We finished the section together. The fence stood straight, humming softly in the wind. But what stuck with me wasn't the fence. It was that feeling of being corrected with kindness instead of anger. Musical note, small key change, our breath pause. He had a way of fixing people without them realizing it. Around noon, we'd sit under the oak tree that leaned over the far corner of the field. He'd pour sweet tea from a mason jar he'd brought in his lunch pail, warm from the sun, full of lemon and memory. He'd hum a tune, always the same one, slow and low, like the earth itself was keeping rhythm. I never knew the words. I don't think there were any. That day, I asked him why he cared so much about a fence no one ever saw. He chuckled. "It's not the seeing that matters. It's the knowing. You take care of what's yours, even when no one's watching." He said it plain, but the meaning hit deep, even if it took me years to understand it. I didn't know it yet, but that day would be the one I'd remember most. By late afternoon, the cicadas were louder, the heat pressing down heavy. He wiped his brow, looked down the line, and said, "Looks good enough to last another season." Then he rested his hand on the top rail like he was blessing it. It wasn't really about the fence. It was about Kay, about doing the quiet work that holds the world together. And then came the day I pushed too far again. We were repairing a corner post when a storm started rolling in. Thunder rumbling low, wind picking up. I wanted to finish before the rain came, so I rushed, driving the nail crooked. The board split. I sighed, frustrated. Guess I can't do anything right. He didn't say much, just took my hammer, set another board in place, and started over. After a minute, he said, "You can fix almost anything, but not if you quit halfway through." He looked at me then, really looked, and added, "World's full of folks who give up too soon. Don't be one of them." That line stayed with me long after the storm passed. It's funny, the sound of rain on tin always takes me right back to that afternoon. When the clouds finally broke, We stood by the finished fence, soaked through but proud. He said, "See, even storms can do a man good." Teaches him to finish what he started. He handed me the hammer, and I swear it felt heavier than before, not because of its weight, but because of what it meant. Years later, I realized that all those mornings, the fence mending, the sweat, the silence, were never about teaching chores. They were about shaping a way of living. Crickets start fading in. Maybe that's what love really is, the lessons that outlast the man who taught them. I used to think love was big gestures. Now I know it's quiet work that no one notices. The best lessons I ever learned still don't come from books. They come from mornings like those. Somewhere out there, that old gate still stands, leaning, creaking, waiting. And maybe that's all any of us can hope for, to leave something open behind. There are some smells that time can't steal from you. Even after all these years, one whiff of warm bread or melted butter, and I'm right back in Grandma's kitchen. Sunlight slants through the window, the air carrying a kind of peace that only lived there. You could feel it before you even stepped inside. The screen door would creak, and before it swung shut, the smell would find you. Bread rising, cinnamon whispering through the air, coffee bubbling low and slow on the back burner. That's how love smelled in our house. Grandma never hurried. Not once. She moved slow, steady, like time bent to her rhythm instead of the other way around. Her hands worked with the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly what mattered and what didn't. And somehow, without saying a word, she made you feel like you were part of something sacred. Like the whole world existed right there between the dough and the laughter. I used to sit on the counter, swinging my legs, watching her mix and knead. The dough would stretch and sigh under her hands, sticky at first, then smooth and soft like a promise. "Don't rush it," she'd tell me. "Bread takes its time, just like people." Then she'd dust my nose with flour and grin. "See, you can't be too serious when there's dough rising." Funny how you don't realize what's sacred until it's gone. Or maybe it's never gone, just waiting in the smell of something simple. Every morning had its own soundtrack. The tick of the old clock, the soft scrape of her wooden spoon, the low whistle Grandpa would send in from the yard. Sometimes she'd smile when she heard it, not because she needed him to come in, but because that was their language. He'd whistle, she'd nod, and somehow that meant everything's all right. One morning, I thought I'd surprise her, slip an extra spoonful of sugar into the dough, thinking I'd make it sweeter. Grandma caught my mid-stir and just smiled, shaking her head. "Some things don't need more sugar, honey, just time." Then she winked and let me keep stirring anyway. That was her way of teaching, gentle correction wrapped in kindness. By the time the dough was rising, the light through the window would turn soft and golden. You could almost feel the day exhale. Grandpa would wander in, boots dusty, hat in hand, and stop at the doorway like he didn't want to track in the world outside. She'd wave him on anyway. "Sit down before it cools," she'd say. He always did, the only time I ever saw him move fast. They had this rhythm, the two of them. He'd pour the coffee, she'd slice the loaf, and they'd share a look that said everything words couldn't. Sometimes they'd talk about rain or crops, sometimes they wouldn't talk at all. But even silence had weight in that kitchen, like the air itself was listening. I didn't know then that someday, I'd be the one at that counter, wishing for one more morning like this. Funny thing about memory, it keeps what matters most. It's strange how some days blur together and others stay bright as yesterday. Once, a summer storm rolled in out of nowhere, thunder low and patient, rain tapping the roof like an old friend come to visit. The lights flickered, but Grandma just kept kneading, steady as ever. "You can't stop a storm," she said, "but you can make the house smell like home till it passes." That's a sentence I still carry in my bones. There was a kind of quiet magic in how she turned ordinary things into something almost holy. A loaf from the oven, a pot of beans simmering slow, the sound of her humming while she washed the same dishes she'd washed for 50 years. Every act felt like a prayer, quiet, unspoken, but strong enough to hold a family together. I remember the way her hands looked, worn smooth, soft at the edges, the kind of hands that built a life without ever demanding notice. When she held mine, it felt like everything I'd ever needed was right there. Steady, warm, unshakable. But time, it doesn't stop for anyone, does it? That last summer, she started to move slower. Her breath came shorter, her steps smaller. Still, every morning, that familiar warmth drifted through the house, just like always. She said it made her feel useful. I think it made her feel alive. There was one evening, quiet, no electricity, the house lit only by an oil lamp on the table. That same golden warmth waited on the counter, fresh from the oven. We sat there, the three of us, tearing off pieces with our hands, butter melting faster than we could spread it. Nobody said much. The rain outside did all the talking. The tick of the cooling stove, the hush between heartbeats, and it was enough. And I remember thinking, this is what peace feels like. Not the big moments, not the celebrations, but this. The warmth of bread, the sound of rain, the people who know your soul without you saying a word. Sometimes, when I bake now, on quiet Sundays or lonely afternoons, that smell fills my own kitchen. I'll close my eyes, and for a second, she's there again, humming, smiling, guiding my hands the way she used to. I can almost hear her say, "Don't rush it. Let it rise." Maybe that's what love really is, something that rises again and again, no matter how many times the world tries to knock it down. It's not perfect. It's not loud, but it feeds you in ways nothing else can. The last time I stood in her kitchen, it looked smaller somehow. The table worn from years of elbows and laughter. The clock still ticking, same as ever. A single loaf cooling on the counter. I just stood there, hands in my pockets, breathing it in, the warmth, the memory, the ache. Because love like that never really leaves. It lingers, in the air, in the walls, in the smell of something warm. Maybe that's why, even now, every time I bake, I leave the kitchen door open, so the smell can drift outside. The breeze carries it down the lane, mixing with the evening air. And maybe, just maybe, she'll catch it too. Some days never really end. They linger, soft as sunlight on old wood. For me, those days always came on Sunday, sitting on Grandma's porch, where the world forgot how to rush. I didn't know it then, but those lazy Sundays would teach me more about peace than a lifetime of noise ever could. After church, the air would slow down until eventide seemed to take a seat beside us. The smell of cut grass drifted from the fields, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked like it was too tired to care. We'd walk the dusty path toward the house, shoes scuffing up little clouds of earth. The screen door would sigh open, and there on the counter waited a pitcher of lemonade, sweating in the heat, shining like bottled sunlight. Grandpa always took the same spot, the porch swing, groaning on its chains like it had a soul of its own. He'd settle in, give one slow push, and the rhythm would start, steady, patient. The creak of the boards joined in, then the hum of cicadas, and a gospel radio crackling behind the screen. And just like that, the day would unfold in layers of warmth and sound. I'd lie on the porch floor, chin propped on my arms, tracing sunlight patterns through the rails. The air hung thick with pine and sugar. Even the birds seemed unhurried, their songs long and lazy, curling through the stillness. Grandpa would tip his hat back and say, "Now this right here, this is peace." And I believed him, because it wasn't about doing anything. It was about being. The lemonade dripped, the swing creaked, the gospel melody floated through the screens. And somehow, that was enough. Sometimes a neighbor would wander up the road, lean on the gate, and swap a story. Grandma would pour another glass, hand it over without a word. They'd talk about crops, rain, or who just had a baby in town. Simple talk, but under it was something deeper, something that said, "We belong here." Back then, I thought that kind of quiet would always be waiting for me. I didn't realize peace was something you had to carry with you. Funny thing about those afternoons, they made the world feel endless. The horizon shimmered with heat, and the sky looked too big for one lifetime. Even when nothing happened, everything felt alive. Sometimes a summer storm would sneak in, rolling dark and low over the trees. Grandpa would grin, rise slow, and say, "Looks like the Lord's tuning up his orchestra." The wind would rattle the screens, rain tapping the tin roof like a slow drumbeat. Lightning flashed across the fields, and for a second, the world looked carved in gold. We'd sit close, listening, safe inside our small world of wood and rain. And when the clouds cleared, that smell, fresh, clean, earth and rain, felt like a promise kept. Grandma would start humming again, the same soft tune she always carried. I never knew the words, but somehow I understood them. They meant we're here, we're okay, we're loved. I'd glance at her hands, always moving, never idle. Folding linens, shelling peas, patching a tear before it became a hole. She never made a show of care. She just lived it. Every small act was a quiet prayer in motion. Once, I asked why we never went anywhere on Sundays. She smiled, brushed a bit of flour from her cheek, and said, "Because, honey, we already are somewhere." It didn't make sense back then, but now I think she meant that peace wasn't a place. It was a way of seeing. The porch wasn't grand, but it was sacred. The swing was the sermon, the cicadas the choir, and silence itself the hymn. When I grew older, life began to hurry. The porch grew quieter, and one summer, the swing went still. Grandpa's hat hung on the hook by the door, untouched for weeks. The gospel songs faded into static. Funny how you never notice the last perfect day while you're still living it. And though I didn't have the words for it yet, I felt the ache of change. The world outside kept spinning, but something in me wanted to stay right there, in that sunlight, in that slow hum of forever. Years later, when the noise of the world got too loud, I'd find myself chasing that feeling, pouring lemonade that never quite tasted the same, listening for cicadas in places they don't belong. And every once in a while, if the wind moved just right, I'd swear I could hear it again. That gentle swing, that hum of peace, that voice saying, "You're already somewhere." These days, I try to build that peace again in my own small ways. A slow morning, a quiet porch, a moment to breathe. Some people spend their lives chasing success. Others chase excitement. But the older I get, the more I realize I've been chasing stillness, the kind you only learn from a Sunday porch, a pair of weathered hands, and a glass of lemonade that tastes like love. Somewhere out there, that porch still swings, soft, slow, and eternal as love itself. There's a willow tree down by the creek, old as memory, its roots twisting deep into the earth like they're holding secrets. That tree has seen everything: summer storms, first loves, last goodbyes, and the one promise it still keeps in its roots. I was 12 the summer it happened, the kind of summer that felt stretched thin with heat and sunlight, where even the air seemed to hum. Grandpa called me down to the creek one afternoon, his straw hat tipped low against the glare. Grandma followed behind, carrying 2 mason jars of lemonade that sweated in her hands. They never called me down there together, and that alone made my stomach flutter. When I reached them, Grandpa nodded toward the shade. "Sit a spell," he said. So I did, right where the grass met the mud. For a while, nobody spoke. Only the cicadas filled the quiet, and the slow curl of the creek wrapped around the rocks like ribbon. Then Grandpa cleared his throat, low, rough, familiar. "You see that gate up there?" he asked, nodding toward the pasture fence. "Your daddy built that with me before he left for town work. Said he'd be back before fall." He paused, eyes on the water. He didn't make it back before the frost. Life gets busy. Happens to the best of us. Grandma brushed a bit of dust from his sleeve. "But that gate," she said softly, "stayed open for him. Always will." I didn't really understand. Not yet. Grandpa looked straight at me then, voice steady as the current. "One day, you'll have your own folks to look after, or friends who lose their way. And when they do, you make sure that gate stays open. Always leave a way home." I didn't know it then, but those 6 words would outlast us all. We sat there a long time after that, drinking warm lemonade and watching the light shift through the willow branches. The smell of wild mint drifted from the bank, and a dragonfly skimmed the surface, leaving little silver rings that vanished before reaching shore. It didn't feel like a lesson, more like the world holding its breath while something sacred settled into place. That night, walking back up the hill, I turned once to look at the gate. It hung a little crooked, creaking in the wind, but it was open, always open. Years rolled by, and the willow thickened, its roots clutching the bank like old hands. When life got too loud, I'd go sit beneath it and listen. Willows don't rustle, they breathe. Soft, steady, patient, like they know time's secret. There were years I forgot that promise, when jobs, bills, and mistakes filled every quiet place inside me. And just when I'd almost forgotten how it sounded, the past came calling. My phone buzzed late one evening. My sister's voice was small, cracked around the edges. "Can I come home?" she asked. Without thinking, I said, "You never left." When her car finally pulled into the drive and we hugged beneath the porch light, something in me loosened. Later that night, I walked down toward the creek, the air thick with crickets and memory. The willow still stood, older now, its bark split and silvered. Yet it breathed the same. I knelt by the roots, brushed away a few fallen leaves, and whispered, "The gate's still open, Grandpa." And I swear the wind answered, soft through the branches, carrying the same quiet peace that once filled our Sundays. Maybe that's what family really is. Not the people you see every day, but the ones who leave a space open for you no matter how far you've gone. Grandma used to say, "Home ain't a house, it's a heart that remembers you." I didn't understand that until life tested it, until forgiveness became a habit instead of a choice. Now, every time I drive that dirt road, I slow down by the curve where the fence dips low. The gate's still there, leaning, weathered, but standing. Its hinge squeaks like an old friend trying to talk. And that willow, it's bigger than ever. The roots have found the creek, and the creek's found them right back. Two old souls keeping each other steady. Sometimes, sitting beneath it, I can almost see them, Grandma and Grandpa, side by side, watching the light play on the water. And every time, I hear that same soft promise in the wind, "Keep the gate open." There's something holy about simple promises, the kind made without ceremony, spoken in the language of love and dust and lemonade. We live in a world that shuts things quick, doors, hearts, conversations. But that old willow taught me something. Love isn't about holding tight. It's about leaving space, enough room for someone to come home again. Sometimes I think heaven might sound like that creek, soft, endless, forgiving. And when someone you love finally walks back through that open gate, their footsteps through the grass sound a lot like grace. Maybe that's all eternity really is, a willow by the water, a breeze through its branches, and the promise that whoever's missing will always find their way home. It started as a soft kind of rain, the kind you don't notice until the air feels heavier and the smell of wet earth starts to cling to everything. No one thought much of it at first. Around here, rain was just part of life. It filled the wells, cooled the barns, made the fields shine like glass. But that year, it didn't stop. For weeks, the clouds hung low and tired. The creek swelled until it licked the edge of the pasture, and the ground turned to sponge beneath our boots. The willow tree by the water, the one that had shaded every good memory we had, started to bend lower, like it was bowing under the weight of too many stories. Grandpa said, "She's seen worse," and I wanted to believe him. But each night, the rain came harder. It hammered the tin roof like it was trying to break through and find what we were hiding. By the second week, the road out to town had washed out. The mail stopped coming. Even the birds had gone quiet. It was like the world was holding its breath, waiting to see who would give in first, us or the sky. We spent our days keeping the house dry, lifting what we could off the floor, laying sandbags by the porch steps. Grandma worked like it was Sunday dinner, slow, steady, and without complaint. She hummed gospel tunes under her breath while we passed buckets, her voice soft but sure, keeping rhythm against the storm. "Rain don't last forever," she said once, setting down her pail. Then she looked out toward the fence, where the gate swung wild in the wind, straining at its hinge. "Just make sure that gate holds," she added quietly. It did, for a while. But on the fourth night, when the creek finally rose over its banks, we heard it, that long, low groan of wood twisting. Grandpa and I ran out into the storm, rain stinging our faces like gravel. Lightning flashed white over the pasture, and for a heartbeat, I saw it. The gate half torn from its post, water rushing through like it meant to take everything with it. We pushed against it together, him on one side, me on the other, boots sinking deep into the mud. The wind howled, the current pulled, but Grandpa didn't move. He gritted his teeth, muscles trembling, and shouted, "Hold it steady. We don't let it go." The gate slammed back once, hard enough to rattle the ground, but we held on. And in that roar of rain and thunder, I realized we weren't just saving a fence. We were saving what it meant. When the storm finally eased, we stood there soaked and shaking, but the gate was still standing, bent, battered, and open. 4 days after, the valley shimmered under gray skies. The willow leaned heavier than ever, its roots half buried in silt, but somehow still alive. Inside the house, we dried what we could. Grandma's Bible, the old quilt, the photographs that had curled at the edges. When the power came back, it was like waking from a long dream you weren't sure you'd survive. One evening, as the clouds finally began to part, Grandpa and I walked down to the creek. The air smelled sharp, like rain giving up at last. The water was still high, swirling with branches and bits of straw, but the worst had passed. Grandpa reached out and rested his hand on the gate. The wood was rough, scarred deep from the flood. He didn't say anything for a long while. Then, almost to himself, he whispered, "See, it held." That's when I realized something I'd never understood before. Strength doesn't always look like standing tall. Sometimes, it's the quiet thing that refuses to break, even when everything around it does. Weeks later, when the sun finally came back for good, the grass grew wild again. The chickens returned to pecking in the yard. The air filled with sound, frogs, wind, laughter, life. We fixed the fence together, hammering new boards where the old ones had split. Grandpa let me drive the last nail, said it was for the next generation. And when I stepped back to look, I noticed something. The willow, though torn and muddy, had sprouted new shoots along its trunk. Small, green, and stubborn. I remember smiling then, because it felt like the world was whispering the same truth we'd just lived through. You can bend. You can crack, but you don't have to break. That summer changed us. We stopped taking dry days for granted. We learned to patch what we could and forgive what we couldn't fix. And maybe most of all, we learned that love, real love, doesn't rush to shelter. It stays. It holds. Sometimes, when the rain hits the window now, I close my eyes and listen. The sound isn't just weather anymore, it's memory. It's Grandpa's hands on that gate, Grandma's voice humming steady in the storm, and the soft breath of a willow that refused to fall. And I think maybe peace isn't found in the easy years at all. Maybe it's born in the years the rain wouldn't stop, and we stayed standing anyway. The morning I left, the sky was too bright for goodbyes. It was one of those early summer days when the light comes in sharp and gold, laying itself across everything like it's trying to memorize the world before it changes. The dew still clung to the grass, and the gravel on the drive sparkled with it. Tiny, ordinary diamonds under my boots. I'd packed the night before, but I kept finding reasons to walk the house one more time. The kitchen still smelled faintly of coffee and last night's biscuits. The porch swing creaked as it always did, swaying gently on its own, as if someone invisible had stopped by just to say farewell. Grandpa was already outside when I came down the steps. He always rose with the sun, even on days like that. He was standing by the gate, the one he built himself all those years ago, the one that still carried the marks of his hammer in hand. The paint had long since faded to gray, and the hinges groaned, but it stood steady. It always did. "Got everything?" he asked, though we both knew he wasn't talking about luggage. "Think so," I said. He nodded once, slow, like he was trying to believe it too. Behind him, the field stretched out in every direction, soft and green, heavy with promise. The willow tree leaned over the creek, its branches brushing the surface like it was whispering a prayer. I dreamed of leaving for as long as I could remember, of seeing places where the hills didn't roll, where the stars looked different, where no one knew my name. But that morning, standing by that old gate, every dream felt heavier than I'd imagined. Grandma came out with a small paper bag. "Lunch for the road," she said, handing it over. "Chicken and biscuits. You won't find better out there." I smiled, but something caught in my throat when I saw her hands, flowers still dusted on her wrists, the same way it had been since I was little. I wanted to tell her I'd come back soon, that nothing would really change. But we both knew better. Grandpa leaned against the fence and looked out toward the horizon. "You remember what I told you, boy?" "About what?" He gave me that half smile that always meant the lesson was coming. "About roots." I nodded. "Don't forget where they begin." He looked down the road, gravel glinting in the sun. "That's right. World's gonna try and pull you every which way. Let it, but don't let it pull the best parts out of you." I didn't know how to answer that, so I just stood there, letting the words settle between us. The air buzzed with the sound of cicadas, and the wind carried the faint scent of honeysuckle. A part of me wanted something dramatic, a speech, a tea, a moment that would tell me this was the exact turning point of my life. But that wasn't our way. We didn't do grand gestures. We just lived them quietly. I shook Grandpa's hand, but he pulled me into a hug instead. "Go on now," he said. "Roads don't wait for thinking." He said it like it was a blessing, not a goodbye. I turned toward the car. The tires crunched over the gravel as I backed out. When I reached the bend where the old oaks arched overhead, I looked back. They were still there, two small figures by the gate, waving slow. It struck me then how everything looked smaller once you started moving away. The porch, the field, even the house, all shrinking into the kind of memory that hurts to hold too tightly. Miles later, the radio came alive with an old gospel tune, the kind Grandma used to hum while hanging laundry. I reached for the dial but stopped. Let it play. Let it keep the silence company. I thought about that gate, how it had stood through storms, through seasons, through every coming and going. And I wondered how many goodbyes it had seen before mine. Funny thing about leaving, it never feels the way you expect. It's not one clean break. It's a slow unraveling, a quiet awareness that home doesn't stay behind. It just changes shape. By dusk, the fields had given way to flat highways and roadside diners. The smell of rain on asphalt replaced the sweet scent of hay. I thought about calling home, just to say I'd made it to the next town. But instead, I kept driving, not out of pride, but because I wanted to hold on to that image of them standing by the gate, waiting, forever unchanged. And somewhere along that endless stretch of road, I realized what Grandpa had meant. Roots weren't just where you came from. They were the things you carried, the patience to listen, the kindness to stay open, the promise to always leave a way back. The night fell soft and blue around me. The hum of the tires became the only heartbeat I could hear. I rolled the window down, and the wind came rushing in, wild and cool. And for a moment, it smelled just like home. Maybe that's how roots travel, invisible but strong, threading through time and distance, reminding you that no matter how far you go, there's a gate somewhere that still waits for you to come home. And maybe that's all any of us are, travelers with roots, chasing the sound of a gate that never really closed. The first letter came on a Tuesday, folded neat in Grandma's familiar cursive, that slanted kind of handwriting that looked like it was always halfway through a hum. I'd been gone just long enough for the days to start blending together, long enough for the sounds of home to fade from my ears. But the second I saw that envelope, something inside me loosened, like a window cracked open in a stuffy room. She always began the same way. "Well, the tomatoes are coming in just fine this year. Never how are you, never we miss you." Just tomatoes, weather, and a small story about someone in town who'd done something half worth writing about. But I knew what she meant. Every mention of ripening fruit or fresh-baked pie was her way of saying, "You're still part of this, no matter how far you roam." I'd sit by the window of my small apartment, coffee cooling beside me, and read her words slow. They carried more than sentences. They carried the rhythm of home. The sound of the porch screen snapping shut, the whistle of Grandpa's kettle, the creak of that old gate in the morning breeze. Sometimes she'd tuck in recipes, handwritten on scraps of paper that smelled faintly of cinnamon and flour. Here's that blackberry cobbler you loved. Don't forget to use cold butter. Makes all the difference. I try to follow them on weekends, my kitchen filling with smoke or laughter, depending on how close I got to her magic. It wasn't really about the food, though. It was about the feeling that she was still teaching me something, even from miles away. Grandpa's letters were rarer, shorter, and always in block letters like he was printing on a barn sign. Fixing the fence again. Think it'll hold another winter. That old pickup's coughing worse than I am. And once, keep your chin up. You're doing fine, even when you don't feel like it. That one stayed pinned to my fridge for years. Funny thing about letters, they travel slower than a phone call, but they linger longer too. You can't fold up a voice and tuck it in a drawer, but paper remembers. As the months turned into years, the letters kept coming. The handwriting got a little shakier, the stories shorter, but the warmth never faded. Sometimes there'd be a smudge of flour in the corner, or a faint ring from a coffee cup. Those small imperfections felt like fingerprints of love. One autumn, she wrote, "The willow dropped her leaves early this year. Grandpa says it's her way of getting ready." I didn't know what she meant then, or maybe I did and just didn't want to. There was one letter that came without her handwriting on it. The envelope looked the same, but the words inside were his, printed neat, with too much space between the lines. "Your grandma's been resting more these days. Still hums when the bread's in the oven. She told me to remind you about the cobbler. Said it'll burn if you're reading too long while it's baking." I read that one over and over until the ink started to blur. That's the thing about distance. It makes the smallest things feel enormous. A short note becomes a hug you can't return. Eventually, the letters grew fewer. Life caught me up. Jobs, rent, traffic, the constant hum of living. Some days I'd mean to write back and never did. I told myself I'd call next Sunday, then the next. But love, I've learned, doesn't keep score. It just waits, patient as morning light through an open gate. Then one winter afternoon, I got a small package instead of a letter. Inside was Grandma's recipe box, the same dented tin she'd kept on the counter all my life. The handwriting on the note was Grandpa's. She said you'd know what to do with these. I sat there in the kitchen, snow falling outside, the city quiet for once. I opened that box and breathed in the smell of paper and time. A mix of vanilla, flour, and old ink. Inside were the recipes I knew by heart and others I'd never seen. One card had a small stain in the corner, blackberry, maybe. And at the bottom of the stack was a folded note I hadn't expected. "Remember, love's not something you keep, it's something you send." Her words, her voice, written years before, but arriving exactly when I needed them. I stood up then, opened the window wide. The cold air rushed in, sharp and alive. Somewhere down below, someone was cooking. I could smell bread baking, faint but real. For a moment, I let myself believe it drifted from home, carried across miles just to find me. It hit me then, the truth I'd been circling since the day I left. Love doesn't fade with distance. It adapts. It learns new ways to arrive. Sometimes it shows up in the smell of warm bread, sometimes in a box of old cards, sometimes in a memory that won't quite stay quiet. I keep those letters in a drawer now, soft edge from years of unfolding. And every so often, I take one out, read a line or two, and let the world slow down. The noise fades, the city hushes, and for a breath or two, I'm back at that old kitchen table. The sunlight through the window feels the same. The scent of coffee, the sound of pages, all still there. And even here, miles away, I can almost hear the screen door creak, the porch swing move, and Grandpa's low voice drifting through the years. Keep the gate open. Maybe that's what love really is. Letters that never stop arriving, even after the ink runs dry. Because some promises, like sunlight and memory, don't need stamps to find their way home. It had been years, more than I'd meant to let slip, since I last drove that old country road. Funny how roads remember you, even when you forget the way back, or what you're coming back to. The air was sharp that morning, smelling faintly of wood smoke and fallen apples. Leaves chased one another across the gravel, golden and restless. I slowed at the last bend, the one where the trees opened up and you could see the house again. The roof sagged a little now. The porch paint faded to a pale ghost of its old blue. But the swing still hung there, creaking soft in the wind, like it hadn't stopped waiting. And beyond it, the gate, Grandpa's gate. Rusted hinges, weathered wood, but still standing proud. Grandpa always said a promise isn't just words. It's something you leave behind, waiting. I parked by the fence and let the engine go quiet. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was full. The kind of quiet that listens back. Inside, the house felt like a museum of everything we'd ever been. Each room still held its own kind of hush, the kind of silence that follows laughter long after it's gone. The kitchen clock ticked too loud, like time itself was keeping me company. On the counter sat a mug, her mug, white with a chipped rim and her name worn faint along the side. I touched it without thinking, and for a second, it was warm. It was sunlight, or memory pretending to be real. There was a jar by the window, her marbles still catching the afternoon light. Dust motes drifted around them like slow snow. I smiled. She used to say marbles held pieces of the sky. A floorboard cracked behind me, the house breathing again, like it knew someone was home. I wandered through each doorway, slow. The living room still smelled of lemon oil and tobacco. On the mantel, that same framed photo, Grandma in her garden hat, Grandpa squinting beside her. The edges of the frame were smooth from years of touch. I traced them with my thumb, a quiet thank you. When I reached the back porch, I paused. The boards groaned under my weight, the same old tune they played my whole life. Out past the willow, the creek still ran clear, steady, unbothered by years or grief. Time had moved on, but that sound, it hadn't aged a day. There's a strange ache that comes from realizing the world kept your memory safe while you were gone. Like it knew you'd come back someday. I sat on the swing, letting it sway beneath me. The air was full of endings, brittle leaves, the last hum of summer giving way to cold. I could almost hear Grandpa's voice in the wind. Seasons change. That's their job. Ours is to remember what stays. Don't forget where roots begin. After a while, I walked down to the gate. Its latch was stiff but still open with that familiar click. The path beyond was overgrown now, wildflowers spilling through the fence. I followed it to the willow. The old tree had thickened with age, its branches sweeping low and golden. The creek murmured beside it, calm as ever. I stood there a long while, breathing in the sound of what used to be. Then the world seemed to still. The wind quieted, even the water slowed. And in that hush, I said it, soft, certain, I kept the promise. A single leaf drifted down, landing on my sleeve and staying there, like it understood. I lingered on the porch steps, not ready to close the door, not ready to say goodbye twice. When I turned back toward the house, the sun was setting low, painting everything in amber and rust. The porch light flickered once, just once, before settling into steady glow. And I realized something I hadn't before. Home doesn't shrink with time. It just grows quieter, waiting for you to listen closer. I stepped inside one last time. The air smelled of dust and pine, old wood and forgiveness. I stood by the doorway, tracing my fingers along the frame. "Thank you," I whispered. No answer came, but maybe it didn't need to. Some places don't speak. They just hold you while you remember how to breathe. As I drove away, the headlights caught the gate in their glow. The wind moved through it, creaking soft, like a sigh. The sky above was bruised purple and gold, and for a moment, I thought I saw two shadows on the porch, one tall, one small, waving me on. I didn't wave back, not because I didn't see them, but because I knew. They already knew. And as the road curved and the house slipped from view, I whispered to the night, "I'll keep it open." Not in this life. Maybe not in any. The letter came in late November. No return address, no preamble, just my name in Grandma's careful handwriting. Inside, a single line, He went peaceful. That was all. No need for more. Some words don't need company. By the time I reached the old house, winter had already taken hold. The air carried that deep stillness only cold can bring, the kind that presses sound flat and makes time move slower. Frost clung to the porch rail, glittering faintly beneath the low sun. The yard was bare, stripped of its wildflowers and green. Even the willow by the creek looked tired. Its branches hung low, stiff and silver with ice. The gate still stood open. It groaned as I passed through, that same faithful creak I'd known all my life. For a moment, it almost sounded like his laugh, soft, low, familiar. I didn't hurry to the door. Grief doesn't like to be rushed. Each step up the porch felt heavier than the last, the boards moaning beneath my boots. When I reached the top, I saw it, his chair, empty. The cushion was faded, the blanket folded over one arm just the way he left it. A half-burned candle sat on the rail beside it, wick curled like a question mark. The cup on the table still had the faintest ring of tea at the bottom. Someone, maybe Grandma, hadn't had the heart to wash it away. I stood there for a long while, watching the wind stir the curtain behind the window. Inside, the light flickered warm, alive. But the chair stayed still. Funny how one empty space can hold more presence than a room full of people. I reached out and touched the armrest. The wood was cold, rough where the varnish had worn away beneath his hands. It felt like memory, textured, unfinished. I sat down in the chair beside his. It creaked the same way it always had, complaining gently before settling. For a moment, the air between us filled with all the things I never said. He used to sit there at dawn, just watching the light crawl over the hills. Said you could tell what kind of day it'd be by the way the mist behaved. If it lingered low, the day would stay quiet. If it lifted fast, trouble might come. That morning, the mist hung heavy, the kind that doesn't want to let go. Grandma came out a few minutes later. Her hands were tucked in her sweater pockets, eyes red but steady. She didn't say anything, just looked out past the yard toward the gate. He built that for you, you know, she said softly. For us all, I guess. Said a home should always let the wind through, and the people too. I nodded, not trusting my voice. We sat in silence, listening to the slow creak of the willow in the cold. Somewhere down the road, a crow called out, low and lonely. After a while, she reached over and placed something in my palm, his pocket knife. The one he used to whittle the fence posts when I was a kid. The handle was worn smooth, warm even in the chill. He wanted you to have it, she said. Keep the gate fixed when it needs it. I closed my fingers around it, holding tighter than I meant to. For a long time, neither of us moved. The air between us was full of ghosts, not sad ones, just the kind that hum quietly when you finally listen close enough. When the sun began to sink, the frost on the rail caught the last light, turning it gold. Grandma stood, brushed the snow from her skirt, and touched my shoulder. Come inside, she said. It's getting dark. But I stayed. The gate beyond the yard rattled softly in the evening wind. I could almost see him there, his hand on the latch, hat tilted, that small half-smile that always said, "It's all right, kid. I'm right here." The chill deepened, but I didn't feel cold. Some warmth lingers, even when the fire's gone out. When I finally rose, I turned toward the chair one last time. The candle beside it flickered, as if in greeting or goodbye. "I'll keep it open," I whispered. The wind stirred, soft as breath, and for just a heartbeat, I swear I heard the gate creak in answer. Morning came quiet that winter, the kind of quiet that doesn't need to be earned. The frost still rimed the windows, but inside the kitchen, warmth had begun to return in small ways. Maybe healing always starts like that, not in grand moments, but in kettles and quiet kitchens. A kettle hummed low on the stove. The smell of yeast and butter drifted through the air like memory had taken shape and decided to stay a while. Grandma moved slower now, but there was a steadiness in her hands that time couldn't touch. She wore her old blue apron, the one with a patch shaped like a heart on the pocket, and every so often she'd pause by the counter, look toward the window, and smile at something only she could see. That window had always been her lookout to the world. From there she could see the gate, the willow, the stretch of pasture that met the creek. She'd stand there most mornings, rolling dough or slicing apples, and say softly, "The world looks kinder when you meet it through glass." I'd come home to help with the chores, though she never called it helping. "You're just keeping me company," she'd insist. But I knew she appreciated the small things, carrying in wood, tightening the fence, checking the latch on the gate before sundown. Every task felt slower now, but not in a bad way. There was something healing in that pace. When you've lost someone who filled the air just by being in it, silence becomes both a wound and a salve. On the first Sunday I was back, I woke to the sound of her humming. Not a song I recognized, just a little tune without words, rising and falling like the wind through the pines. I followed it to the kitchen, where sunlight pulled across the floorboards, turning the flour dust in the air to gold. She was kneading dough, elbows deep in the rhythm of it. When she saw me, she smiled. "Coffee's on the table," she said. "It's not fancy, but it's hot." The mug was chipped, same one Grandpa used to drink from, and somehow that made it taste better. For a while, neither of us spoke. The only sounds were the soft thump of dough and the clock ticking on the wall. That clock had been there as long as I could remember, its hands moving slow but steady, a little reminder that time keeps its own promises. After a while, she wiped her hands and looked out the window. "He used to sit there on the porch this time of day," she murmured. "Said mornings were God's way of saying, 'Try again.'" Her voice didn't tremble, but there was a quiver in the air that made my throat tighten. We ate warm bread by the window that morning, butter melting fast, the crust still crackling from the oven. Outside, the frost began to lift, catching light like 1,000 small goodbyes that somehow didn't feel sad. As days passed, we found a rhythm. She'd tend to the garden, brushing snow from the rows as though coaxing life awake. I'd split firewood by the shed, the sound echoing through the bare trees. And every evening, we'd sit by the window with our tea and watch the sun lower itself gently behind the willow. She never talked much about missing him, but sometimes her eyes would wander toward the porch, and she'd say things like, "He never did like being late. I reckon he's still keeping the gate oiled somewhere." I'd nod. That was enough. Some love doesn't end, it just changes rooms. One afternoon, as I was sweeping the porch, I found his old hat hanging behind the door. I almost called for her, but something told me not to. I took it outside, brushed off the dust, and set it on the empty chair beside mine. When she came out later with 2 glasses of lemonade, she noticed it but didn't speak. Just gave a soft smile, half gratitude, half ache. We sat there as the light faded, 2 figures framed by the hum of crickets and the slow, steady breathing of a house that had seen it all and kept standing. Inside, the kitchen window glowed like a lantern. It had always been more than glass, it was a heartbeat. Through that window, I could see her moving about, wiping the table, setting bread to cool, turning out the last light. The glow spilled out across the yard, reaching all the way to the gate. And for a moment, I swear I saw a shadow there. Tall, familiar, hat tipped low, before the wind stirred and it was gone. Later, when I walked her to bed, she paused at the doorway and said, "You know, he'd be proud of you, keeping things together like this." "I'm just doing what he taught me," I said. Her eyes softened. "He used to say a home should always let the wind through. Guess you remembered that." That night, after she'd gone to sleep, I sat by the window a while longer. The moonlight caught the rim of the teacups, silver and still. Outside, the gate moved in the wind, slow, gentle, almost like a sigh. I thought about everything that had been built here, not just the house or the fences, but the life that filled the spaces between them. A life made of bread and laughter, quiet work and open doors. And I realized something Grandpa had been trying to tell me all along. Love isn't a thing you keep, it's a thing you tend. Like a garden, like a house that creaks in winter, like a gate that never fully closes. The light through the kitchen window flickered once, as if in agreement. And in that moment, soft, wordless, holy, I knew the home was still alive. The road hadn't changed much, still winding, still stubborn in the way it refused to be straightened. But this time, I wasn't the one at the wheel. My granddaughter sat beside me, small hands gripping a stuffed rabbit, eyes wide at the fields that rolled past like waves of gold. "Is this where you grew up?" she asked, her voice soft but eager. I smiled. "Yes, sweetheart, this is home." The word home lingered between us, as if the air itself wanted to remember what that meant. When we turned down the lane, the tires crackled over gravel that hadn't been replaced in decades. The old willow tree was still there, bending low and kind, its branches sweeping the earth like it was brushing off the years. Beyond it, the house waited, smaller than I remembered, but still standing proud in its quiet way. The gate creaked as I pushed it open. It always did, no matter how many times I'd oiled it. My granddaughter giggled. "It sounds like it's saying hello." "Maybe it is," I said, and meant it. She ran ahead up the path, hair catching the sunlight like spun wheat, her laughter carrying through the yard. I followed slower, the years a little heavier on my knees, but lighter in my chest. Inside, dust motes danced in the air, catching in the same beams of light that once found my grandmother's hands at the counter. The smell of the house was still the same, wood polish, flour, and something sweet that time hadn't managed to take away. She paused at the kitchen door, eyes wide. "Did Grandma really bake hay?" "She did," I said, "every morning, and every loaf had a little love in it." She wrinkled her nose. "You can't bake love." "Oh, you'd be surprised." I showed her the window, that same one where light used to fall across my grandmother's apron. Outside, the garden was wild now, but not gone. The lavenders still grew by the fence, the mint still curled around the steps. My granddaughter pressed her face to the glass. "It's pretty," she whispered. "It's real," I said. "Pretty fades, real stays." Later, we sat on the porch together. The swing still held, though it groaned with every sway, as if tired from all the years it had held people and memories alike. She leaned back and said, "Tell me about them, the people who used to live here." So I did. I told her about her great-great-grandpa and how he taught me to build a fence that would stand through any storm. About her great-great-grandma and how she believed a kitchen light should never go out, no matter what the world outside was doing. And about the promise, the one made beneath the willow, to always keep the gate open for whoever needed to come home. She listened, legs swinging, eyes full of that quiet wonder only children carry, the kind that makes the air feel sacred just for a moment. When I finished, she looked out toward the fields and said, "Can we come back here every year?" Her question caught something deep in my chest. For a second, I saw all the years folded together. My grandparents, my parents, myself, and now her, all standing in the same sunlight, across time. "Yes," I said softly, "we'll come back." She smiled and leaned her head against my arm. The swing creaked again, slow and steady, and I realized the sound wasn't tired at all. It was still keeping rhythm, the same rhythm this place had always known. When the evening came, she wanted to see the willow up close. We walked down to it, hand in hand. The air was heavy with the smell of grass and the soft hum of summer. The creek still moved quietly beneath, whispering the same tune it always had. She stood beneath the willow, looking up through the green curtain of branches. "It feels alive," she said. "It is," I answered. "Everything that's loved is still alive somehow." She bent down and picked up a small stone, smooth and pale. "Can I leave this here, so it remembers me?" I smiled, heart full to the brim. "You just did." We stayed there until the light began to fade, the sky turning gold, then pink, then blue-gray, the kind of blue that always made me think of home. When we turned back, I glanced once more at the house. The porch light flickered on, automatic now, but warm all the same. In the window, for just an instant, I thought I saw a figure, tall, familiar, smiling. Maybe it was the dusk playing tricks, or maybe it was love, keeping its word. Back in the car, as we pulled onto the road, my granddaughter asked, "Do you think they can still see us?" I looked in the rearview mirror, watching the old house grow small in the distance. "I think they never stopped," I said. "Some things don't end, they just change how they shine." The road stretched out ahead, soft and endless. And for the first time in a long while, I realized what my grandfather meant when he said, "Don't forget where your roots begin." Because sometimes they aren't buried deep in the ground. Sometimes they are right there in the laughter beside you, still growing, still blooming, still home. The seasons had been kind, or maybe forgiving. The house had settled deeper into the earth, its boards soft with time, its windows fogged with memory. Yet every time I came back, that old gate was still there, leaning a little, groaning when it moved, but never once closed. I suppose that's the way love works. It doesn't stay new, it stays open. The wind carried the scent of lilac that morning, the same as it always did this time of year. The air felt clean, gentle, like the kind of peace you only earn after a lifetime of holding on. I pushed the gate, and it gave that familiar sigh, swinging inward like an old friend stretching awake. The yard was smaller now, or maybe I was just seeing it from farther away. The willow had grown thick and wise. Its roots had broken through the soil in places, twisting like the lines on an aging hand. The porch swing, though faded, still hung steady. Someone had replaced the rope, maybe my son, maybe his wife. The sound it made in the breeze was the same tune I'd known since childhood. My granddaughter was older now too, tall, confident, carrying her own little one in her arms. When she came through the gate behind me, I caught a glimpse of who I used to be in her walk, that easy curiosity, that unspoken wonder. "Still creaks," she said, pushing the gate again and smiling. "It wouldn't be right if it didn't," I said. She laughed, and the baby joined in, that soft, bubbling laugh that makes the air itself feel lighter. I swear even the trees seemed to lean closer to listen. We walked up the path together, slow and easy. The grass brushed against our legs, the sun slanting low through the trees. Each step sounded like a memory waking up. Inside, the house smelled of bread again. My daughter had taken up my grandmother's recipes, her handwriting still pinned to the corkboard above the counter, yellowed but legible. The words "add love freely" were underlined twice, just like always. We sat around the table that had seen more hands, more stories, more laughter than I could ever count. 3 generations now, maybe 4, if you count the ones watching from the quiet corners of the room. Someone asked me once what it meant to grow old in the same place. I told them it wasn't about staying, it was about returning. You leave to live, you return to remember. And the gate, well, it's there to make sure both are possible. Out on the porch, the evening light began to settle, turning everything to gold. My granddaughter rocked gently on the swing, humming an old tune my grandmother used to hum while baking. The baby reached for the sky, small fingers catching the last bits of sun. I watched them and felt that steady, familiar ache, the kind that isn't sadness but gratitude in disguise. Every face that came before me seemed to linger in the breeze. I could almost hear my grandfather's voice again. "Keep the gate open, son. You never know who might need to find their way home." And he was right. Over the years, neighbors had come through that gate when they needed help. Old friends stopped by just to sit a while. Even strangers sometimes paused, drawn by something they couldn't name. Maybe the way the light hit the porch just right, or maybe just the feeling of welcome that hung in the air like the scent of fresh bread. That's what I'd learned. Home isn't a place you own. It's a promise you keep. When night fell, we lit the porch lamp, the same one that had burned through storms, blackouts, and lonely winters. Its glow reached just far enough to touch the gate. I like to think that was no accident. Before heading in, I walked down the path one last time. The air was cool, the crickets just starting their evening song. I rested my hand on the top of the gate, feeling the rough grain of wood beneath my fingers, scarred but strong, just like the people who'd opened it for me all those years ago. I didn't close it, of course. Wouldn't dream of it. Instead, I gave it a gentle push and watched it sway, back and forth, a quiet rhythm that said everything words never could. Behind me, laughter drifted from the porch. Inside that laughter were echoes of my grandmother's humming, my grandfather's whistling, my own voice younger and surer once upon a time. I turned toward the house and smiled. Love hadn't gone anywhere. It had just found new hands to hold it. And the gate, well, it stayed open. Always had. Always would. The evening came softly, like it always did, slipping through the trees, brushing gold against the porch railings, settling quiet across the yard. I sat where he once sat, where she once hummed, where generations had watched the same sun dip behind the same ridge. The air held that familiar stillness, not empty, but full of everything that had ever been said here. The crickets began their chorus, steady and patient. Somewhere down the hill, the creek whispered against the stones, just loud enough to remind me it was still there. The smell of wood smoke drifted faintly from a neighbor's chimney, the kind of scent that pulls the heart backward. So simple, so ordinary, and yet somehow, everything sacred in the world seemed to rest right here on this porch. The old rocking chair creaked under me as I leaned back, watching the light fade. I used to think moments like this were small, the quiet ones, the in-between hours. But now I know better. This is where life hides its gentlest truths. A sparrow hopped along the railing, wings puffed, curious and unafraid. I smiled, maybe because it reminded me of something my grandmother once said. Everything that visits you comes with a bit of someone you've loved. So I let the evening visit me, the way grief once did, only gentler now. The house glowed soft through the window, the same way it had when I was a child. Shadows moving, laughter distant, the low hum of conversation wrapping the walls like a lullaby. The smell of fresh bread still lingered faintly in the air. That simple, steady warmth. My granddaughter's voice floated through the screen door. "Grandpa, you okay out there?" "Yeah," I said, smiling, just watching the day say goodbye. She stepped out for a moment, her hair catching the last orange threads of sunlight. She didn't say anything, just leaned against the post beside me, quiet and content. And in her silence, I heard all the voices that had once filled this place. Every one of them, still here. The world had changed more times than I could count. The fields had shifted, the town had grown, even the sky seemed wider somehow. But love, real love, hadn't moved an inch. As the first stars blinked awake, I felt a kind of peace that words can't quite hold. It wasn't joy, not exactly, and it wasn't sorrow either. It was something in between, the gentle rhythm of a heart still grateful to be beating. I thought of all the hands that had built this place, the laughter that had filled it, the quiet nights that had shaped it. And I realized, life's beauty isn't in what stays perfect. It's in what we carry forward, what we remember with love, even after the voices fade. The porch light flickered on. The air smelled faintly of lilac and old rain. I looked out toward the gate, still open, swinging slightly in the wind. Some doors close with time, but the heart, like that old gate, stays open forever.